Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to talk about our favourite plus size influencer, Jaelynn Chaney, who has single-handedly fixed it for people to get a free seat on the plane. If they're morbidly obese, that is. At least with Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines introduced a policy where you get an extra seat for free. Generally, it's done by reimbursing people, but they also allow you to go up to the person at the gate and give them prior knowledge that you would be needing an extra seat as a passenger of size, or whatever terminology they used.
All plus-size passengers should be provided with an additional seat or 2 or 3 depending on their size and need during a flight for comfort. Under this policy, airlines should also offer a straightforward refund process for those who are buying additional seats independently.
So Jaelynn is really making progress in her advocacy for plus-size travelers. She doesn't seem to be making much progress when it comes to getting healthy, though, sorry to say. And ironically, this is affecting her traveling. This is affecting her mobility and her ability to travel comfortably. But that doesn't seem to be something that she highlights in her videos. She only talks about how the rest of society has to bend over backwards to accommodate plus-size travelers, but the responsibility doesn't seem to fall on the plus-size traveler in any capacity. Interesting. So her latest gripe is with Seatac International Airport in Washington. She claims that an employee refused to wheel her up the jet bridge. She refused to push her up the jet bridge because of her size. Whereas the other passengers who had wheelchair assistance, the person assisting them was happy to push them up the jet bridge. But when it came to her, the employee was like, nah, I'm out. This is as far as I go. I can't do it. And basically didn't do it for her and made her walk. She says that that had implications, made her breathless and everything. So let's take a look.
My ordeal at Seatac Airport will shock you. This experience I'm about to share with you is yet another example of why employee sensitivity training, a demand outlined in the plus-size travel petition, is desperately needed. I'm a plus-size wheelchair user, and on a recent flight to the Seatac Airport, I requested wheelchair assistance, as I always do. When it came time for me to deplane, I saw the employee who would be assisting me with my wheelchair waiting for me in the entry of the jet bridge. As I approached her and she realized she'd be assisting me and not one of the smaller passengers, she started to walk away with the wheelchair while making comments about my size. Even when I told her I really needed the chair and needed her to let me sit down in it, she blatantly ignored me and kept walking. I was then forced to walk up one of the longest jet bridges I've encountered, and she didn't stop. By the time she let me reach the wheelchair and sit down, my lips were white. My oxygen levels had dropped and I almost fainted. This was my first time flying without oxygen. This woman just assumed I could walk and would rather me do that, instead of her having to push someone my size up the jet bridge. All the other attendants wheeled their passengers up the jet bridge, but my needs were disregarded. This is discrimination. Nobody should be treated this way. Share your story at change.org plus-size travel.
So that's what she does. She usually gets petitions and, addresses her concerns when it comes to plus-size traveling. So this is a new petition, I guess. And she's saying that it was because of her size, because the other employees were perfectly happy to push their passengers up the jet bridge. And she thinks, or she seems to assert, that being morbidly obese and having a disability, are in the same category. A lot of people who are in wheelchairs are of normal size. When I say normal, I know that's not, people don't like that word, but you know what I mean. They're of an average size. It's just that they can't walk, or it's just that they have certain disabilities.
Today, I want to talk about the misconceptions regarding my petition. I recently started a petition that demands the FAA to protect plus-size travelers and customers of size, which millions have heard about now around the world. My petition is about ensuring that every individual has access to safe and comfortable air travel. It's not just about plus-size individuals, but also about individuals with disabilities who may require additional space or accommodations to travel safely and comfortably. By having regulations in place that protect plus-size individuals, it would also benefit those with disabilities. Ensuring ensuring that they have the space and accommodations they need to travel comfortably. Taller individuals also face many of the same challenges that plus-size travelers face when traveling by air. Legroom is often limited, and plane seats are designed for the average size individual. By having regulations in place that protect plus-size travelers, taller individuals would also benefit greatly. Lastly, there are individuals who physically take up more space regardless of their size, and they also deserve to have access to safe and comfortable air travel. By signing my petition, we are not only advocating for the rights of plus-size individuals, but for the rights of all individuals who face challenges when traveling by air.
So a person can have a disability but be of average size. So when it came to Jaelynn, there were other factors at play here when it came to the wheelchair. The person probably took one look at her and decided that she ain't going to be able to do it. This part you're going to have to walk because I can't push you up. Now, when it comes to people in hospital, for example, if somebody is very big, not just overweight or, but they're morbidly obese, they have to call in reinforcements to transport this person. They can't just have a regular nurse deal with transporting this person, moving them onto the bed, transferring them to a stretcher and that kind of thing. They have to call in special enforcements, extra members of staff, so that this person can be transported, they can be moved around the hospital. So this is a regular airport worker. It sounds like it's a woman. So she could be somebody of a really small size, and she doesn't feel that she can push this person up the jet bridge. If anything, it's actually better for the airport worker to be honest and say, it's better for you to walk. I can't do this portion. You walked onto the plane, you walked down the aisle. She's saying you're going to have to walk this part. She was perfectly happy, it sounds like, to push her elsewhere. But this particular part where you're pushing upwards, that requires the person to have a certain level of strength. And if she doesn't believe she has that ability, she has that level of strength, sorry, it's better for her to be honest. Now, I don't know how the woman approached the situation. I don't know if she was rude or not. But in terms of just being within your capabilities and being honest about your capabilities, she had every right to do that. You're not entitled for people to make travel easier for you. If you've paid for your ticket, you're entitled to your seat. The rest is up to you. Now, obviously, with disabilities and things like that, there are things put in place to assist people, to promote equality. When it comes to equality, somebody with a disability should have the same access and therefore be given reasonable assistance for them to have that access. But in terms of you just being comfortable, you're not entitled to that. A lot of people complain about how uncomfortable it can be flying, especially like when you're flying with kids. If you're 6'7", there are going to be factors where it's not going to be comfortable for you. You can't demand that they restructure the plane to have bigger bathrooms, for example, just because you're tall. And that applies to somebody who's obese. They can't make all these demands because they feel entitled for everybody to bend over backwards to make them comfortable. No, that's not right. The bigger you get, the more of an impact it's going to have on your movement. Even people who aren't like obese, they're just a little bit overweight. They'll be the first to say, as soon as I lost a few pounds, I had more energy, I moved faster, I got up quicker, I could walk further, on a hike or whatever. So you can imagine somebody who's obese or into the morbid obese territory, the bigger you are, the more difficult it's going to be when it comes to walking around, when it comes to moving from A to B. You're going to move slower, you're going to be more out of breath. That's just a fact of life. And many people have experienced that. I don't think the employee is there to ensure you don't have to do any of the hard parts when it comes to walking around the airport. When we see a huge staircase, nobody's entitled to have somebody carry them up the stairs so they don't get out of breath. We see mothers with push chairs all the time. Sometimes they have to wait for someone to come and help them, at the train stations and places like that. And she don't seem to be telling her followers the reality of being overweight and traveling. She's not telling them the reality of that. When it comes to movement, the bigger you are, the harder it's going to be to move around. I think she needs to be honest with her followers and talk about that aspect. And what can we do to remedy that? What can make our life a little bit easier when we go traveling if our size affects our movement? I wonder what that is. Why not acknowledge that? There have been several plus-size influencers who passed away recently.
Jamie Lopez, star of Supersize Salon and founder of Baby Doll Beauty Couture, has died. She was 37 years old.
All eyes are on me. There's cameras all over me.
Hey guys, if anyone's being shared this video from another, or if you just don't know, I'm related to Waffler69, or my brother Taylor. He has passed away around 10 p.m. on January 11th, 2023, from a presumed heart attack.
TikToker Waffler69 has sadly passed away. He passed away on Wednesday from a heart attack, according to his mother. If you don't know who he was, he made a lot of food videos. He was only 33 when he passed. I hope that his family is doing okay.
We're in the middle of an epidemic. Extra body weight causes, heart problems, diabetes. What do you say to that?
I think it does definitely fly in the face of what most of us tend to believe and what our common sense maybe even tells us. But I think that the science isn't actually as clear-cut as we like to believe. And there's not really quite a consensus yet about the real relationship between weight and health.
How is the science not clear-cut? Because we get these statistics about how many people die each year of extra weight contributing to things like heart disease and diabetes. So where do you see that the stats aren't correct?
Well, I think in a lot of different ways. So in terms of the stats that you just mentioned about weights attributed to death, quite often what we find is that what studies do is they'll look at people who die, and if anyone is fat in that sample, they'll say, well, they died because of their weight, when of course it could have been a range of things, including diseases like you just mentioned. One thing that's really in vogue in the literature right now is we see a lot of articles about what they call the obesity paradox. And this is research that's finding that obese people and even morbidly obese people have just as good of health, or sometimes even better health, than people who are in the healthy weight ranges.
Massey University academic Dr. Kat Pause died suddenly in March 2022. Her death news was shared by Congresswoman MP Deborah Russell via her Twitter account. I know very few details except that our darling friend died in her sleep last night. I'm so very sad, and I know that many in academic and union circles will be shocked and saddened too. Look. You can look up a picture. This is someone who was tremendously overweight. Yeah. And they're saying they have no idea. I'm pretty sure that I can guess as to what contributed to it.
I ruined my life with food, binge eating, and lack of self-care.
And she wanted to make sure she educated her audience about the harms of obesity, and to make sure you understand that you are in control with your body, and the time is now to start changing your habits.
Several of them are no longer here anymore. And Jaelynn is only in her mid-20s. She has all these opportunities to travel, but what is the quality of her experience when she travels? The focus seems to be more on everyone else, the airlines, the hotels, employees. But at some point you have to focus on yourself and ask yourself, what can you do to make it easier for you to travel? What can you do to make it easier for you to move around, for you to walk up the jet bridge? What can you do to make that experience easier for yourself? At some point, you have to ask that. It can't just be everyone else. Now, at the same time, she does seem to have the energy to make content. So let's not forget that. You have the energy to make content, and you have the energy to get up and get on the plane in the first place, then, maybe you can just walk yourself up the jet bridge. She doesn't want to strain herself by walking, but she expects the employee to strain themselves by pushing her up the jet bridge. Again, there's a sense of entitlement here where I don't have to inconvenience myself, but you should. And if you don't, that's discrimination. What if the employee hurt their back or got seriously out of breath, having to push you up the jet bridge? Because you can walk, the employee is basically saying the onus is on you to deal with the consequences of your size, not on her. And I don't blame her. I really don't. No, sorry. She's probably thinking, I don't get paid enough for this. I'm not a specialist. I don't really see how you feel you have the right to demand that someone pushes you up the jet bridge when you can get yourself up the jet bridge. It will be uncomfortable, but that's not the employee's fault. And yeah, someone noticed that someone's filming her. She has the energy to make content. She has the energy to make sure she's filming herself everywhere she goes. So this person said, no. The reality is, her size is not controllable by someone holding an airport chair on an incline. Exactly. Do you think everybody has the strength of the Hulk? I wouldn't even feel safe with any random person pushing me up an incline if I was her size. I wouldn't feel safe. I would want somebody who's trained to deal with someone of my size. If not, it would be better for me to walk. Why does she assume that it's even safe? It's not. I have to hold my rims in a death grip to stay in control. 300 pounds in front of a 50 pound chair held by a 120 pound helper. Not doable. Exactly. How was she able to film herself being pushed in the wheelchair if she wasn't being pushed in the wheelchair? She was walking through the plane at a brisk pace. Interesting. She just didn't want to overexert herself. That's the impression I'm getting. Her poor oxygen levels are due to her obesity. Her heart will give up, and she's at risk of so many other diseases. You need to stop promoting being overweight as healthy. Simple, really. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, like and subscribe, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.